This podcast, Strange, Rare, and Peculiar, is for kind of those in the know about homeopathy, deepening your knowledge, bringing you more information about what you need to know, and maybe what you can leave aside about homeopathy.
Homeo what?
Homeo what?
Good morning.
Evening.
Good evening.
It's definitely evening here. You know how I know that?
Why is that?
Because there's no coffee.
And therefore there'll be no slurping.
There's no, unless you slurp your glass of wine. So full disclosure, this is a special holiday edition of Strange, Rare, and Peculiar.
Why is it so special? It's 4th of July.
It's the night before the 4th of July. It's 4th of July Eve. And we've got a cheeky glass of wine, and we're going to answer the questions that have been coming in. Oh, my chair is loud. I apologize. We're in my office with my absolutely non-functional chair, but it's really beautiful green velvet.
Here's the first question.
Yeah.
What do you do to stay energetic with all that you have on your plate?
Take naps.
Yeah, keep going. This is a question for you.
Oh, it's for me.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh. It's just that I love what I do.
Uh-huh.
It's just that every single task is like, which one can I do? And so, yeah, I don't know. And it's just my nature.
Bioplasma?
I like bioplasma.
Every
That's
now and
helpful.
again.
And eating really super clean.
Here's the thing I've noticed. You don't do supplements.
No, because I don't have the patience. I would never do them. I buy them. I totally buy them. I have tons of them. And then every year when I clean out the cupboards twice a year, I throw them away. That's really true.
That's awesome.
It's bad. Yeah.
Anything else that you do to stay energetic with all that you have on your plate?
I mean, seriously, it's like, I think it's, I treat my life like I'm a marathon runner. And I sort of view each week as, you know, what are the things that I have to do? And I'm really careful about what I put in my body.
Food and stuff, huh?
Food and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm not like weird, though, I don't think.
Why don't you talk about how local we eat? We're getting amazing, aren't we?
Well, yeah, we grow a lot of our food, and then we shop at the farmer's market, and we shop at our food co-op. I mean, like, you know, like the homeos do. But I think that's probably a part of being energetic. I take an 18 to 23 minute nap probably 4 times a week. Do yoga every day. I don't know. This is like weird talking about me and what I do. What about what you do?
Well, I take a 18 to 23 minute nap.
Yeah.
As often as humanly possible.
What would you eat if I didn't make the meal plans? And how would that affect your life? That's probably a good question.
Next question.
Right.
I observe you cooking on a regular basis. Like, you know, you start off with the garlic and then you do this and then that, and then it gets really confusing for me because you layer in the flavors. And so it's not just like this recipe's got garlic and this recipe's got onion and this recipe's got something
this
else.
happened at our retreat, at the AHE team retreat. Somebody was saying, well, what are you making?
Right.
And I said, I'm not quite sure. And it's not like not quite sure. It's sort of, you've got, when you're cooking with a lot of really good fresh ingredients, preparing all the ingredients and then putting them together becomes really important. I think that's part of being good and energetic.
Right. Well, it does.
Yeah.
It clearly keeps me the healthiest I've ever been. I mean, I've not had a coffee since the 16th of December 2019.
But who's counting?
I'm not counting.
Don't you think breathing and meditation is also really important?
Yeah, totally. But I think the nutrition part of it was an area where, you know, I was fairly lazy for a couple of decades, perhaps.
I don't want to say anything about it.
No. So, you know, and the reference to me watching you cook means that I could not replicate anything you do. So for me, here's what I would eat on a pretty regular basis.
14 chickens.
No. I would go for one of those amazing tins of mussels and
Yeah.
a bit of pasta.
Those Patagonia mussels, they're amazing.
They
What about
really
midnight pasta?
With a little bit of white wine. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's living.
That's a really good meal.
Yeah,
We've been
midnight
having
pasta.
something we call, it's a recipe called midnight pasta, which is pretty amazing. But let's leave the food behind. Let's get into something else. Because then the next thing would be beverages, and then forget it.
All right, it's a great place to start.
Okay.
So the next question is, what is a Materia Medica? And how do I choose a good one?
So for any AHE students who are listening, I had a great conversation with Franz Vermeulen recently about about his Materia Medicas. And any AHE student will remember that when we have in semester 1 the Intro to Materia Medica lecture, there is this moment of, is this the right prisma? What's the synoptic? What about the concordant? And they pull out everybody's got their Franz Vermeulen books and they're holding them up in front of the camera. And I was talking with him recently and I was telling him about how that day goes. And I said, you know, how do I explain to them, like, what's the difference? Why did they change? And he said something really sort of dry and Dutch. It was just
Book deal.
It was yeah, it was about his publisher deal. Yeah.
But his Materia Medicas have changed from, let's call it our student time, because his
we all just had the concordant.
Is no longer the concordant.
Was yours green?
It was.
Yeah, green leather bound
So I
one.
call it the Vermeulen concordant green version.
Yeah, the green book.
As opposed to the purple version, Prisma.
But that's totally different because that's when he started getting into more. That's the precursor to Source and Substance, right?
Right. And so, you know, what we're talking about is a contemporary Dutch Texan homeopath.
And now he's in Texas. Yeah, the thing about Materia Medica is...
But he's not the only one, right?
No. I mean, the thing is, you've got to ask yourself, why... let me think about how to phrase this. There are so many options in Materia Medica, and you need to match what you are using to the reason that you are using it. So in other words, who are the authors? What is their background? What is their bias? And I don't say bias as a...
Or their cultural filter.
Their cultural... Like, for example, Fatak, Indian medical doctor. Yeah.
Calcutta.
Yeah. So
full of amazing information.
Yeah.
And totally not what you need if, you know, you've got a client in front of you that's angst because their credit cards reached their limits, you know. Not the Materia Medica you need.
I mean, because then there are the simple language cases.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so those cases, I find that they often do really well by looking at the provings or the authors that write about sort of the more mental, emotional, and what's another way to describe simple language? Like for somebody who's never heard the term simple language.
Well, simple language is what comes out of someone's mouth in a spontaneous moment where they would have had any opportunity to use any phrase.
Yeah, unfiltered language.
Yeah, and so, you know, like a Freudian slip.
Yeah, this is where we always come back to Sankaran because I really got to give him cred for that idea of the other song. It's like, totally. I feel, do you agree? I feel like he sort of... he branded simple language in a way that nobody had really done before. Yeah. And he does it differently than Jeremy Sher does. Because Jeremy, what I love is that Jeremy, in his provings, has evolved to the as if one person idea. So there's an intro in all of the provings where he's taking all of the provers' information, synthesizing it, and then writing it in this format that tells a story. I'm thinking about two of Jeremy's remedies that I teach that I use the language from the as if one person verbatim because I think it tells the story so beautifully. One is salmon, Oncorhynchus, and the other is, which I know I'm pronouncing wrong, the Pacific Coast salmon. And then the other one is gallium. Both of those, it's the words and the tenor of it that tell the story. So that's so contemporary. But like, what if you had someone who had a very pathological, small totality case? You might want Compton Burnett for a very physiological.
John Henry Clark.
Or Clark, yeah. Or
how about Richard Hughes? If we're on the Brits, Hughes, Clark, and Burnett.
You know, I have a different feeling about Hughes after pharmacodynamics. After really researching pharmacodynamics for my thesis.
And what about, we're just, now naming names, but
I mean, we are leaving out Hahnemann.
I attempt to have a look at Kent's Materia Medica. If I have to teach a Materia Medica class, those lectures are good.
They're totally good.
Yeah, really good.
When I teach how to study Materia Medica, sort of in the early days, especially because then we're usually teaching polycress or common remedies. So polycress are remedies for which they are sort of multi-systemic remedies for which we have a lot of information, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll tell students, well, the first thing to do is just read Kent, and because it's a lecture and it's the format that they're used to, having Materia Medica information delivered, and then to do like a comparison of something like going small, keynotes and confirmatories. So you might take Roger Morrison's Blue Book, which I think there's a black version, but it's the desktop guide.
Desktop guide.
Yeah. And so you might look at that as a contemporary keynote and confirmatory and compare it with like Bozier, right? Or
Synoptic Key.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then move up to FATAC and then, kind of go up from there. And if you're not going all the way to the proving, which of course we encourage, and we could talk about primary source materials in a bit, but I think sometimes when you're just doing comparisons for analyzing a case, you're wanting to look at a variety of Materia Medicas to see what information floats to the top. Because you want to know that the remedy that you're selecting, that the affinities for which the remedy is useful. So in other words, the body systems or the particular types of pathology. I was teaching a clinic today, and somebody said, looking at the pathology of this client, would you say that they need a remedy with an affinity for the glands?
Who said that?
Karen.
Nice.
Yeah,
work.
It was really nice. She's fantastic, of course.
Shout out to Karen.
Hell yeah. Anyway, so you want to get a sense of the affinities, and it's not always clear what the affinities are for.
Well, not from the proving.
No.
But have you seen those graphs of? I teach these graphs in when I'm doing Compton Burnett, and it's a simple chart. You can do it in Radar Opus. You spit out the rubrics of a remedy and put it in a graph, put it in a bar chart.
Oh, and Luke had showed me how to do that.
It immediately tells you or gives you an impression of the affinities.
Yeah.
What a cool thing to do.
It's totally, can you remind me how to do it? Luke showed me probably 10 times and then I forgot because I came up with other things that I like to do in Radar Opus.
But what we're saying, therefore, to a question which is a legitimate question, like which Materia Medica should I buy, is, well, it depends. And it depends on you, it depends on the type of clients you're seeing, the stage of development of you as a budding, learning, journeying homeopath, and again, all of these secondary texts are written through a cultural and a gender lens,
and at a particular point in time,
and a historical lens. Nice.
Yeah. So one of the things that our students. One of the books that our students really like, the advanced students who are working on branching out, Richard Pitt's book. It's that.
Well,
what
it's
is
not
it called?
Materia Medica.
It's not. What's it called? It's something about old and new remedies, and I really like it as a springboard to find things that when you don't know what you're looking for. It's not the final, for referencing, you've got to go to then another source. But I think he's done some really nice work in helping people to find what they don't know that they're looking for.
So that's another good comparative. It's comparative Materia Medica at the end of the day, isn't it?
It is, but it's got a very particular purpose. Nobody really did it like that before. One of the things I say to students is that in the beginning, when you're learning, there's this point in time where homeopathy is so exciting because you feel like it's going to solve every problem that could be put in front of you, and it's going to help you to understand human nature and everybody that you are in relationship with. So you can take everybody that you know and put them into a category, right? So that's phase one of learning. It feels super tidy and it feels really efficient. And the example I always use is when you finish your laundry and everything is clean and folded and put away. But we've talked about that on the podcast. We don't have to do that again. Do you remember you told the story of the laundromat in Brooklyn?
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's stage 1, though, is a very tidy categorization. It's sort of a simplistic thing, and that's the beginning of learning. That's really helpful, and that's where some of those very basic kind of, I don't love this term, but the essences of the remedies or the personality types sort of come in. It's like when people go, oh, she's such a pulsatilla and so forth. But that's sort of stage 1 of learning. Stage 2 is when you start to recognize how many patterns there are in a presentation, and you realize that you don't know the pattern that's in front of you.
Yes.
That's the biggest leap, I think.
It's important, isn't it?
It's so important.
So at what point do you, because the question is about what is a Materia Medica, and then...
Wait, can I just finish the thought, though? Because then the third stage is, how do I find that remedy?
Right.
So the first stage is, everything fits into what I know.
Yep.
The second stage is, I don't know this. And the third stage is, how do I do this?
Good.
No, go on with the...
Well, it's really an evolution of that, and that is that we've been mentioning predominantly what we would describe as secondary sources.
Yes.
And a secondary source, what is a secondary source? Describe a secondary source.
Well, you describe a secondary source by knowing what a primary source is, which is the original material. And the secondary source is someone else's interpretation or filter of that material, and often a compilation of multiple
And in
sources.
homeopathy, it's really critical to learn both.
You have
and
to.
there's a difference between the both. So everything we've mentioned so far is
Secondary, yeah.
But because of look at the phrasing of the question, what is a Materia Medica? Well, the question back might be, well, are you interested in primary or secondary sources? But of course, for us, the primary sources are the provings.
That's right.
And so they live in a couple of different places, a couple of volumes.
And it's really critical because one of the things that happens is that, and this is actually something that is a little bit troubling. So dramatic. But students start to see the repertory as an oracle.
Ooh,
If there's a rubric, it gives an answer, right? Well, I found this rubric, therefore. And one of the things that I think can be distressing as a homeopathy student or a practitioner, if no one's kind of led you along the way, is to recognize that what's in a rubric, each remedy within a rubric can be there for different reasons.
Totally.
And one of the exercises that you have to do is to say, why is this remedy in this rubric? I just did that with the semester 2 folks when I taught hysteria in the last week of classes. Hysteria. So I had them look at the hysteria rubric in Kent's repertory. So that's the what year was Kent's repertory?
1900 in three and in chapter by chapter up until 1903.
Okay. So I had them look at Kent's rubric for hysteria, not the contemporary one, but there are, I think, 126 remedies in there. And I had them look at the Kent repertory because in 1900, that was a very particular diagnosis and it really meant something. And then they had to look at the 126 remedies, and we broke everybody into groups, and everybody had to do a certain amount of those remedies to say what made them appropriate for hysteria based on the definition of hysteria in 1900. Super fun. Because hysteria is more than Moschus. Right?
Yeah. Here's a question. Are you done with Materia Medica?
Are you? I can't see the question, so you are...
Well, that's right. I'm the question MC.
You're the moderator.
How did AHE come to be?
Oh, wow.
Tell the story.
So the quick...
I'll order pizza.
Yeah. The quick story is that AHE was a part of the Center for Homeopathy Education, London. And it started as an offshoot in New York in 2010. And I started teaching for them right in the beginning. And it was a combination of, it was mostly the British teachers coming to America. Everything was live in New York City. And the stories, if you've heard the past podcast with Tina Quirk, where we talked about finding locations and all the different places that we taught, like the Opera Center and primary school, like all the places where, anyway, so we were a part of a British institution. And then the thing was that the school didn't meet the criteria for the Achina accreditation, which meant that the students couldn't get their CCH. And for a variety of reasons, by the time we got to 2015, we needed a Brexit because it would have been a really big departure from the curriculum that they had. And so I guess I was there from the beginning, and I took on directing it in 2013. And then 2015 was when you and I took it on to sort of create the program that we believed in. But what was interesting about it, so, I mean, like this kind of thing happens in homeopathy schools all the time, right? It's not like there's no good, bad, or otherwise with it. It just sort of was. It was a decision. They were based on a particular curriculum and set of things that were appropriate for them in the UK and the type of students that they were attracting. But it didn't fit the model. There was practical homeopathy involved in it. It wasn't, it's really hard to integrate that into the certification model. And most certainly the accreditation model in the United States. Anyway, but it was super fun. I mean, getting to teach there in London and having all my British teacher friends come, it was pretty great. I mean, and I guess it's like one of those reflective moments where you go, like, there are lots of different things in homeopathy, and to not put judgment on it is really healthy.
At what point did CHE become AHE?
2015. No. I tell lie, 2016. Because in 2015, we sort of kept the name. We licensed the name from them. And that was the year that we were putting our own curriculum in. Oh my gosh. But we had our new curriculum, but then we had students that had come from CHE, and then we had the students from Anne Jerome School, what was it? Academy of Classical Homeopathy, I think it was called? ACH. And so we took that on. So we had a pathway in all those students. And it wasn't until, 2018 or 19 that it was only our curriculum. Let's never do that again.
At what point do you think, so you're saying that AHE became AHE fully?
In 2016.
2016. Mm-hmm. Man, I remember those times. What I would do is I would look at the gaps in the calendar and go, this is a really good time for me to fly to New Zealand.
It was a nightmare. You know what?
To see my parents.
Yeah, and you were also doing your PhD.
To do some study.
And you were doing some work over there?
Just at the time of the year where you needed to pack up all the books and put the arms on the chairs.
I wanted to kill you. I actually wanted to kill you. So if you want, when we were in co-working spaces.
She's not kidding.
I'm not. We had classrooms that were like.
Can we talk about that part?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that happened, say a very small education institution has a problem, and the problem is commercial space, commercial real estate.
Oh, totally.
And especially unless the classrooms are pumping, there's a whole lot of wasted real estate. And I loved arriving in New York in 2015 and kind of going, well, we don't want to get involved in that kind of, practice. And then realizing, do you remember the first co-working space we went to? It was Midtown somewhere. I still remember it, walking in, absolutely heaving. Do you remember we were looking at different types of spaces, and we walked into the first co-working space, and I just went, oh my God, this is amazing. And then we found WeWork. Oh,
right. We went to Brooklyn. So if you're not familiar with...
There's probably a WeWork uptown. And they were opening. They said, oh, you want to go to Dumbo?
We also looked at one in Soho or Tribeca, and then the Dumbo one was opening. So if you're not familiar with the idea of co-working spaces, it was this model, this sort of shared office idea where you had flexibility. And so we were...
Super flexibility for
growing companies and stuff.
Small companies, self-contained companies, individuals.
And we had, oh my gosh, we figured out that we could rent an office and we could make it into a classroom. And we had the full-time class Monday and Tuesday, and then we had the the weekend classes. So we taught Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week.
And therefore, the classroom could become the office for the other times.
But the problem was, in order to fit all the people in, and they had these like cushy office chairs, you had to take the arms off the chairs. And so every student, I can't even believe we did this. And Veronica and I would do it because you would have to go to New Zealand.
But that was in Green Desk, right?
We did it in both places.
Yeah.
So what would happen is you get these big chairs, like an office chair, and you'd have to get a hex wrench.
You would enroll at AHE and you'd
get a hex wrench.
A wrench. Take your arms off the chair.
Everybody had to take the arms off their chairs, and we would put them into these boxes, and we would store them.
Storage boxes.
Yeah, and we had a company, I forget what it was called, but these men in a uniform would come and pick up the boxes, and you were never there. Veronica and I
was very busy elsewhere.
Yeah, we would have to and we didn't rent space in the summer because it was too expensive. Oh my God. You know what's so funny is people think of AHE as being like a college, because we really try hard to be professional. It's like ridiculous when we think of everything that we've done to make homeopathy education happen.
And the library, Veronica would pack up the library every 10
Wait,
minutes.
Veronica and I, are you kidding? We would pack it up.
I was just assuming you were direct.
No, she and I did it. Veronica and I did it together.
That was another trip that
we would have to pack up the library into these storage boxes and store it over the summer.
I think, and so the question is a good question. How did AHE come to be? And I think it's
a miracle.
Well, but it's also through those, shared crazy moments and moving and finding solutions to big challenges and, moving from WeWork to Green Desk really quickly. And
because we had no money.
And
we had to pivot and we had to downgrade. But actually it was an upgrade. We downgraded in what it cost us, but we upgraded because it was a much nicer place to be.
Yeah, apart from the windows you could see into my lecture.
With your syphilis lecture with the Schenker penis. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I've never been the same. Can I just tell that story real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So we were in these office spaces, right? And we would get the biggest office, like it would be the equivalent of a conference room or whatever. And so we would have all the students in there, and then they were glass offices, and they would be frosted glass up halfway. And then, when you're teaching, you have your screen that you would project the PowerPoints on. And Al and I had our classrooms were adjacent to each other. And one day I'm teaching, I don't know what I was teaching, but I'm, talking away. And then I look up and I can see into his classroom. And what I see I was like, oh my gosh.
It was a primary syphilitic ulcer.
It was a primary syphilitic ulcer. It was a giant penis with a Schenker on it being projected in an office. And I thought, oh no, people are walking by. Like, how do we explain ourselves? Like, we weren't weird enough.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, but it's, this is the thing though, the Schenker aside, is that AHE came to be because people just care about homeopathy. And we're just a little team. How many are we? I mean, I guess you've got sort of volunteers and...
Well right then, there were 3 of us.
It was just you, me, and Veronica.
And then Andrea got on board in 2016 at the Denver conference. Do you remember we spoke with her? We went out for burgers. I want to say
it was 2017 then when she started.
I think so, yeah.
So I think and Tina worked with us.
And Tina.
Yeah, Tina was with us, and Veronica. Yeah. And it was just us. And then Andrea came on board. And was it just the 5 of us? 4 of us, because Tina then left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
What a journey.
Yeah.
We're
having PTSD. We're totally having a PTSD moment. Oh my gosh.
Denise is holding onto her head. She's looking at me like, wow. Let's talk about something else.
Let's talk about
one more question.
Yeah. Sorry for the sound.
Word on the street is that, Denise, I heard you're writing a book. What's it about? When's it going to be published?
Actually, there are 3. There are 3. So oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to say it out loud because I'm manifesting it, right? Because so there are 3 projects that are happening. One, which is my thesis is being turned into a book. Sherry is helping me with that. It's being formatted now. And I can't understand why people are telling me, I tried to find it on the Hopkins Library, and I have written to my department chair, and and nobody seems to know. So anyway, so that's going to be published soon. That's pretty easy. That's just formatting. The second thing is the project that we're working on for HHN, which is the Comfort Care Project, which is palliative and end-of-life care. And that's something that we'll probably do a whole podcast on, but we're going to be, we'll have a course, and we will be getting not volunteers because everybody will be paid for it, but it's going to be training people up and getting, sort of consistent implementation together for palliative and end-of-life care project. And so there will be not necessarily a book, but there will be sort of a...
The question was about a book. You said...
Okay, I'm getting there, but those I'm just...
No. So I think you should commit to a book.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a whole book.
Well, it could be a small book.
A small book. That'll be a small book. But the big thing is the big book is on case analysis. And I started it in 2019. I started in 2018.
Nova Scotia?
I started it before, but I worked on it a lot in Nova Scotia. And then I started at Hopkins, and then I had to put it aside. So I've picked it back up, and I'm just working like
case
crazy.
Analysis.
Case analysis.
Look at all the hundreds of books on case analysis and homeopathy.
There are none.
Not one. Are you kidding me?
Well, that's not technically true because people have developed their own sort of systems.
Correct.
Right? There are mapping systems and there's all this kind of stuff, but it's funny. I've been running teaching clinics for really consistently doing teaching clinics for, I don't know, more than 15 years.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah.
And so there's a thing, we're in a rhythm, and we've got this, I don't know if I'd even call it a methodology. It's just an analytical framework that helps people get from point A to B to, success, decent success in prescribing. So I'm putting it all together. Oh my gosh, what a project.
And there's also another message that I got from Sherry the other day saying it's time that you two wrote the coffee table book on the history of homeopathy.
Oh my gosh, we're totally going to. I cannot wait.
Right.
Let me get this. I just need to get the case analysis thing out, and then can we discuss this off the podcast? All right. There's too many questions for me. Well,
that's 4 questions. That's good enough. I think that's how do you stay energetic? What's Materia Medica? How did AHE come to be? And you're writing a book.
Yeah. Let's wait. Now I'm looking at them and just do one more. Why do we have to learn philosophy? Can't we just learn remedies and call it a day? Oh my gosh, that's the best question ever.
Where is that? Why do we need to learn philosophy? Well, theory.
Yeah.
Homeopathy is applied theory. It's not a philosophy. It's an applied philosophy. It's an applied theory.
It's the laws of the universe.
Correct.
Put into practice.
Through the lens of a set of facts. Through the lens of a person. Right? That's different from the practice of medicine. There are principles of homeopathy. You said there's 4 of them. I said there's 8 of them. And yeah.
You're talking about when I say the 4 foundational principles.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just got that from Hahnemann.
I know, exactly. And so, there's 4 or 8 of them. But the things that define homeopathy.
Yep.
And then what happens? A jobbing homeopath is listening to the suffering and symptoms of a client and applies that principle of similes in particular and the other secondary principles.
But that's aphorism 3. Aphorism 3.
That's what we
Job
do.
description of the homeopath.
Right. But the thing is, you can't do it unless you understand what is the totality of characteristic symptoms. You can't do it unless you understand the principle of similars. You can't do it unless you understand the principle of the single remedy. Right? So,
well, and if you get into complex chronic disease, you can't do it unless you really understand miasm theory and...
Good. And knowing when to back off the principle of minimum dose.
And fungible totality.
Fungible.
But do you remember being a student and just wanting the Materia Medica as if that...
No, I never did.
You're kidding.
No, I never did because I listened. And I heard it from Misha and I heard it from Jeremy. And I just went, I'm okay. I tell you what, I just went, I trust these 2 guys, these 2 gentlemen, and they keep saying to me, learn foundations. Materia Medica is the thing that happens at the end of the process. Understand your client, listen to your client, find out what's wrong with them, do the process, do your analysis, do your case analysis, and then the remedy is the thing that happens at the end. And you will not, if it was the end of first year in my study, I would have known 50 remedies. All right, I know that there's another couple of thousand to go.
Right.
And so I did. I kind of trusted in that process, and I watch students in our, this is our time now where, we are saying, passing on that message and saying sometimes a very similar thing. And I see the impatience, and I see the
totally
give me the answer, give me the answer, give me the answer. I'm saying, if you've got a photographic memory, if you're a computer, then learn Materia Medica. But that's not what makes you a homeopath. What makes you a homeopath is applying the Materia Medica to this situation. That's applied philosophy.
So aphorism 3, Hahnemann says, know what is wrong with the patient, know what is curative in remedies, and know how to apply it, and then remove the obstacles.
Remove the obstacles.
Right. And that is such a big deal. The job description of the homeopath, it's been the same for, 230 years.
Well, if those are 4 different things, I think you said 4 different things.
Yeah, they're kind of 4. I mean, because he adds on remove the obstacles.
Is a quarter of it.
Right.
So apply a quarter of your time appropriately to that. But the rest of it, don't neglect the rest of it. Because you'll be a big head full of Materia Medica with no
But
clients.
see, this is the thing, though, that I think has happened in homeopathy, because I think emphasis on the remedy has moved people into sort of this hunt for the simillimum as opposed to understanding the unraveling of a case. Now, it's different with acute and chronic. With acute, you got to get as close as you can. But even then, a person with a healthy enough vitality, you get the close enough-icum, and they get better.
The close enough-icum.
Did you ever hear? I think it's a Jeremy thing. It must be. All my good sayings probably come from his funny things.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, like the simillimum and the close enough-icum. I might have just made that up, but I'm going to credit him anyway because that feels right. But you've got to learn the principles to know what to do. In fact, this came up in clinic today because we had a case. It was a great case. It's a 20-year-old person who has done really well for I don't know how many months, several months, on sort of an odd remedy. I don't want to say what it is because I want to make sure to keep the client de-identified, but has done very, very well. But we had to address the case and go, okay, what if we're at the end of the point where this remedy is appropriate? Do we switch? And we had to look at all the philosophical principles or all of the rules, all the laws to go, okay, how do we determine to make the decision? It was pretty good. And in the end, we stayed with what she was on because things are moving really well. And I have to say, I was just so jazzed by the students because they know their stuff.
It's so interesting today because we had this follow-up and it was the opposite. And it was a situation where there'd been movement in a deeply chronic, messy case. And we had some movement 2 months ago, 1 month ago. It's the same thing today. I'm going, folks.
Time to bail.
Time to move on.
Yeah.
Back to work. Back to the analysis. Let's go again.
Yeah.
And I think they might have, heard that after your.
Because how many follow-ups were there today? How many did you do?
I did 2.
Okay, so there were 3.
Yeah,
Although Kelly had 1, so there were 4 follow-up appointments. This is the thing that I love about our program. Our clinic is totally pumping. I mean, it's just so amazing because you've got to see how something actually works. Did the remedy work? And the decisions that you have to make along the way. One of the things that we talked about today was the second prescription. And this would be an entirely amazing podcast on its own, talking about the second prescription and case management. But it was great because it was, the second prescription is the one after the first remedy has acted. If you shoot a dud, doesn't count. But the second prescription is a different analytical framework. And that different analytical framework disavows that simillimum idea of the bounty hunters that are constantly chasing the, I don't know what. I don't even know how to think about it.
Let's not go there today.
No, we're not going to go there today because it's time to make dinner.
Well, that is... Suddenly our quick podcast has turned into a 40-minute bonanza.
A bonanza.
And so it's time to call it quits. That's 5 questions. Folks, I mean, Denise and I are often bewildered that, there are people
Anybody who
listening.
listens to this, thanks for doing it.
And so thank you also for sending in those questions.
Yeah,
and,
send more.
Yeah, more. And we'll do our best to entertain and...
You think you're entertaining?
All right. We'll leave it there. See you,
ya.
folks. Bye.
AHE is changing the face of homeopathy education by raising the bar through rigorous academics and unparalleled clinical training delivered live through the soulful use of cutting-edge technology. AHE prepares its students to become fully rounded homeopathic practitioners from anywhere in the world. Apply today at ahe.online.